Hey, everybody, welcome to today's episode of the Course Building Secrets podcast. I am so happy to introduce to you Krystal Vernee today. And welcome, Krystal. We're so happy to have you here on the podcast. To get us started, tell us just a little bit about you, your business, and what you're all about.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm actually a serial womanpreneur. I have several businesses, but for my coaching business, Simply She, I teach coaches and consultants how to build their brand by creating a signature program that attracts their ideal clients. Super excited to be
Awesome.
here today, too.
Yeah, very cool. So how did you get started so first of all, so if you're a serial entrepreneur, which is so often the people I end up talking to, and it's so much fun because we talk about one business and it's like, well, then I have another one and then I have another one and another one. So how did that happen for you? Have you always been that way, or did just like you just discover that you had this kind of talent later in life?
I've always been doing it, had my hands in a lot of things.
Yeah.
But my first business was my pole studio, pole dance. I'm
Okay.
in Maryland, so I have a physical brick and mortar business, and that's what I've been doing for almost 9 years now.
Okay.
And I think the serial entrepreneurship piece kind of like fell in my lap in terms of like I felt called to share my story and to help other people to build their business. So that's why I kind of gravitated towards the business coaching route and then brand strategy, because by the time I decided to become a business coach, I had 3 brands
Okay.
already.
Yeah.
And so just kind of thinking, well, I think I have a formula for helping other people be able to really stand out and provide a premium experience. So
Mhm.
that's kind of how I kind of got to where I am now.
Yeah. So I love that because you really, so for two reasons, is that you sort of, it sounds like things sort of evolved, right? You started with this one thing and then it was like, oh, well, people are asking me about this, or, I have a formula for this. I've done this successfully and now I can go and help other people. I love that because so often when people are getting started, I think as experts, there's this, you have to be an expert. You have to go to school for it. You have to do it for 20 years before you
Mhm.
can go out and help other people. And just by having a formula of this worked for me and being able to help other people has probably really served you, and being able to go out and do different things. And they probably all connect in different ways, don't they?
Yeah, so 2 of my businesses are related, like 2 and 2 are related. And so
Yeah.
they're interconnected. So my pole studio, I have a sensual aerial dance brand, Cirque Sensual, and my studio is called Divas and Dolls Fitness. And so the aerial dance kind of feeds into that. We do like similar to Circus Soleil, circus arts.
Yeah.
So it's basically introducing that to the community at large. And then my business coaching and brand strategy firm pairs nicely with my personal brand, Krystal Vernee, of being an author and a speaker and a coach. So, of course, because you are the brand. And so basically,
Yeah.
when you see all the different, all my different businesses that I talk about, it is me. And so that's why I brand myself personally.
Yeah, very cool. Okay, so for my aspiring and my course creators who are out there listening to this, what tips and tricks do you have to help them not only sort of claim their expertise, but start to package it into a signature program or into something that they can serve other people by doing?
Absolutely. So, one of the things when I work with clients, we first start with is their zone of genius. So, the things
Mm.
that you really know how to do well. And I always say your zone of genius has 4 parts. So that's going to be your number one. What are you quote unquote an expert in? You know how to do really well. Number 2, what are you passionate about? I mean, really passionate about. You would get up in the morning, do it really early, do it for free. Number 3, in terms of your zone of genius, who can you best serve with that? Who can you best help, and what problem can you solve that they have with your zone of genius? And then the fourth and final piece of that is, would they pay for it? So it has to have those 4 elements in order to be able to package your expertise. But I always tell people, start with what you're good at. Don't try and like go out and figure out this new thing or something that seems popular on social media. We want to always start there because everyone's an expert in something.
Mhm.
And so, knowledge is power, and you can definitely take something that you're really good at, that you take for granted, and teach someone else how to do it at an expert level.
For sure. Yeah. And I think that's so important too, because I don't know how you are, but like for me, part of my journey is I woke up one day and I'm like, I don't like the people that I'm serving. Right. I was like, I'm working my, like my expertise and my passion. I love what I'm doing. But I had that moment years ago where I was like, I don't really want to be serving these people. Right. I was like, uh-oh, I'm doing this. Like there's a piece missing. So that formula is so powerful, because first you have to love what you're doing, because you're going to do it all the time. And that's what's going to, in my opinion, like attract people to you, is when you're excited about what you're doing. Then you have to love the people that you want to serve, and you have to be able to solve a problem. So often I think that that's the missing ingredient that most people have, is they're like, yep, I'm an expert. And yeah, there's these people who, need me because they're asking me for different things, but they don't think about like the core problem that they can solve, and how then that's what you build the business around. It's not just, giving them information and knowledge, or
Right.
dumping your expertise on them. It's like, what is about your expertise, that little problem that you can solve better than anyone else, and easier than everyone else, right? Like that's the other
Right.
thing too, is that it's like it's so easy that you would do it for free. I love that
Yeah.
you just said that, because it's like, well, why would people pay for that? Because nobody else can do it. Right? Like that's your zone of genius right there. Awesome. Very cool. So what else? What do you have another kind of core tip that you give people as they're creating their signature programs?
Yeah, for sure. You kind of said it. Don't just dump information in a course portal.
Mhm,
So
mhm,
I think one of the things I work with my clients on is actually curriculum design. And
mhm.
it's a course, meaning you're teaching people how to do something.
Yeah.
And for coaches and consultants, this would be considered like a hybrid model.
Mhm.
Um, you have a course element, you have a coaching element, so you're doing a little bit of both. But you can't just take your knowledge and just like that, right?
Right,
Just
right.
kind of just dump it in there. There has to be some thought around the order of information. Did you actually think about how you can accommodate multiple learning styles with this course? And that kind of goes into knowing your target market really, really well. But I think for me, it's like making sure that not only do you have information, how are your students in that course going to be able to implement the information that you're giving them? So what
Exactly.
fail
Yeah.
safes or mechanisms have you built in to ensure that that happens, so that the success rate for your course is high?
Mhm.
So I think that's like one of my main things, is like, don't just take the information, just put it in there. It's other
Yep.
things.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. Because information without implementation or action is not meaningful. Right.
Correct.
It's just like, for me, and you're speaking my love language, but for me, it's like, whenever you talk about somebody understanding something or knowing something, what for? For what
Yeah.
purpose? Right. So don't
Hmm.
start with the knowledge, start with the action, the implementation. Like, what do they need to do? And then what do they need to know in order to be able to do the thing, instead of all of it. So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, for
so
sure.
important. I love the
Hmm.
learning styles. So this doesn't come up very often in this world, but I love that you just said that. So when you're talking about learning styles, can you explain to the audience what you're talking about when you're talking about learning styles? Because that is something that I don't think a lot of people think about, but it's super important.
Yeah, so just a preference. I do have a background, like kind of in academia. My family, they're all teachers. So
Yep, I can hear it.
growing up, that was all that I heard. And of course, I
Yeah,
broke the family mold and did engineering. So I completely jumped ship, and like they were like, "How could you not?" But it all
right.
comes full circle, because that's what I'm doing. I'm doing now.
Right now you're teaching.
Um,
Yes, you're
I
just
am,
teaching in a different way.
just in my own way. But when
Yep.
you talk about learning styles, it's going to be your audio, visual, and kinetic
Mhm,
learners.
mhm.
And so when you're thinking about a course, you're like, well, how's kinetic going to even be in there? But guess what? I do give my clients hands-on things to do. So thinking about the auditory piece of people who learn best by hearing things, you may need to have a recording, right? People who are visual, maybe it's seeing you, but it's also having like slides or exercises where they can actually see the concept you're presenting. And then kinetic learners need to do. So what can they do in order to be able to solidify that concept? So people typically have a primary learning style, secondary, tertiary. So making sure you have those elements built out within your course is extremely important. I typically am a triple threat. So there'll be audio, there'll be video and slides, and there'll be an exercise for you to do and implement. Show, tell, do
100%.
is how I teach my clients to teach their clients to be able to make sure that that concept is solidified. And I mean, that's really the basis of any curriculum.
Yep. Yep. I love it. I love it. That's perfect. And here's the deal, course creators. A lot of times we don't talk about that, but you'll see it in what you're creating, right? You'll see it in like doing a transcript and doing a video and doing a workbook, doing slides, doing different things. So you're constantly having different methods for people to be able to learn and engage with what you're doing. So I love that you brought that up, because it is definitely something that that speaks to how do you get people engaged? How do you get people to how do you meet them at kind of in their terms, if you will? Awesome. Super cool. Okay. So tell me a little bit about so one question I always ask people is like, what's one book or resource or tool that you love that you couldn't live without in your business?
Oh man, that is a tough one and a great question. I have to say, dang, I have to choose one. Okay.
Well, you could choose a couple. We have a couple minutes. That's fine.
Okay. I was like, dang, one. I was gonna say Canva.
This is the serial entrepreneur part of you, where you're like, I can't pick one. Don't put me in a box. I gotta have lots of them.
Okay, so maybe I'll go with two. Which yeah. So Canva is one that I can't live without.
Yeah.
Definitely, if you're not a designer, you hate graphics and you hate all things about like having to do that stuff when it comes to marketing and social media, Canva is your best friend. There's a free version. I used that for years until I needed to like customize my brand colors and things like that. So Canva is definitely a tool I recommend for any entrepreneur, especially if you don't have a designer background. And then project management software. I can give examples, definitely a couple, Smartsheet, ClickUp, you can do MS Projects, Asana, something to be able to keep yourself organized and like have some place to store your standard operating procedures or your SOPs so that when you do have a team, you know exactly like what you're going to train them on. Of course, I'm a project manager. When I was in corporate, that was part of my job, was to be a project manager. And so that skill definitely translates into being a business owner, because as a CEO, your business is basically one huge project that, you know, you have to like manage on a daily basis. And in order to be able to do that effectively, you got to keep track of a lot of things. So I tell people from day one, that's something that you should definitely invest in. Because when it's time to hire your first team member, you're overwhelmed and you're like, well, who should I hire? What am I going to train them on? You could just look and see like what you do every day, and there's a part of your training plan. So I'll recommend those two.
Your business is just a big old project. I love it. It's so true. It is. Yeah. 100%. I love it. Okay. So tell us a little bit. I'm just curious about how, and maybe you're going to just tell me it's your project management tool, but like, how do you, as a serial entrepreneur, for all of my people out there who have multiple businesses, because I have a lot of people who have a brick and mortar business and sort of the online component, either they're helping people with how they've built their business, or it's an extension of their business. How do you manage all of the businesses being just one person? Like, I'm sure you have a team, but like, how do you think about, you know, having multiple businesses and keeping track of all of the visions and the clients and the leads and all the things for that?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I get this question a lot. I think I'll tell people I had one business first, and I built that up to a certain level. I got really good at still doing it, delegating the things that I didn't need to do to free up my time as a CEO. Having standard operating procedures, also project management software, team building skills. So, like with my first business, my studio, I don't have to do a lot. And that was because I worked really, really hard with my team and them understanding and knowing expectations. And they pretty much know what to do. It's a well oiled machine and we're constantly growing. And then when I decided, okay, I'm going to add on these 3 other businesses, it was setting up, what my standard operating procedures were going to be. I'm documenting what I'm doing. So very much have that engineering brain and reverse engineer what I need to do every single day. But just making sure that I'm spending my time as effectively as possible is like what I keep at the forefront while driving my business forward. Because once you ask yourself the question, is this really the best use of my time?
Mm.
And if the answer is no, then you ask yourself, am I doing this because I really want to do it? Like it's a passion of mine, like that particular activity or task, or am I just doing it because I haven't quite learned or I'm not comfortable with effectively delegating to someone? So having that question in my mind is kind of how I move forward and plan anything new I'm going to start in my business, any new business ventures, just so that I'm operating as effectively and efficiently as possible. And of course, always keeping a pulse on what's happening, at each level.
Yeah. Oh, so cool. So just as a follow-up to that, like, how do you keep the pulse on all of your different businesses? What does that look like?
Yeah, so I have team meetings with my various teams that I have. So my coaching business, of course, is not as old as my studio. So very small team there, but I have biweekly meetings with my executive team and then my frontline staff. So I meet with everybody just to make sure that I am still staying true to who I am and my brand and how I want things ran, and in constant communication. I think where a lot of business owners go wrong is that once they get to a certain level, they step all the way out of their business. And, I think as someone who's building a brand, you're never really all the way out of the business. You should always show your people that you care, that you're still there. I don't ever ask my staff to do anything that I wouldn't do myself. And just, showing up each and every day, your true authentic self, and, making sure that they know and understand that you're with them, regardless of your position. I think that's an important thing, but you're only as strong as your weakest link and as your team. I saw a quote the other day that said, there are no self-made millionaires. There are teams that built millionaires. And so I take that to heart, and my people are like my most important asset in my business. I don't know about anybody else, but I'm really adamant about ensuring that I have a strong team behind me, and I'm currently nurturing them so that the business overall grows.
Yeah. Awesome. Very cool. Thank you, Krystal, so much for being with us today. If people want to learn more about you, your signature program, and all of your things, where can they go to find out more about you?
Absolutely. So they can go to my website at www.isimplyShe.com. You can actually connect with me on all my handles at slayhardeveryday.co. That connects you to Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, my podcast. It's all there. But my signature program accelerator is for coaches and consultants that are really looking to get a handle on their coaching zone of genius, their target market, their niche, and really set up their signature programs so that they stand out and build a strong brand. So that they can find all of that on slayhardeveryday.co.
Awesome. And those will also be in the show notes. All right. Thank you so much for being with us today, Krystal. And everyone else, enjoy your day.